Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Kristen Galden. If you have attended, you know the voice. So hello, happy to have you here. As you can see on your screen, I am joined by Jackie Harvey and Cora Watkins from LAUSD. We're very happy to have both of them today. And they're going to walk you through an initiative at LAUSD that led to Cora and Hand to Mind partnering for some custom kits, and it's just a great story for you all to sort of, understand what criteria they were looking at, and as they, work through this initiative in the pandemic particularly. So I'm looking forward to hearing from both of them. But before I pass it off, just a couple of logistics. This is your webinar panel. You are coming in on mute, and that is not something that we can unmute. So you will communicate with us through the question feature. So I'm going to shoot you a chat right now so that you can see where that is. And any questions or comments throughout, please put them here. I will flag them, and we'll do a live Q&A at the end. So everybody should see that pop up. If you're by default, you come in on the computer. That's usually the easiest, but if you're having trouble with it, just switch over to the phone and it will show you the number and the access code to put in. After the webinar, and I do have this set up for, I don't know, maybe an hour or two after, you will receive an email from me, the webinar platform, thanking you for attending. That email includes two things. It includes the recording, so the link to the recording for you to watch later. It also includes a certificate. If you are viewing this webinar later and not attending live, the certificate is not available. It is only sent to those who attended the webinar live. So I like to clarify that. So I'm going to launch a very quick poll here before we get started. Just let me know, this should pop up on your screen. Just let me know what your role is. Are you a primary teacher, upper elementary teacher, administrator, or other educator? Just so that we know who we're talking to. I'll give you just a minute. Still need Jeopardy music that I don't have. I say that every time. Okay, let's see. 52. All right. So we look like, about 25% K2, and about half are other, for your own knowledge. Okay, Jackie, I'm going to go on mute and go ahead and go to the first one here.
Okay, great. Thank you. And by the way, I'm from Hand to Mind, so I have had the honor and really truly privileged to work with Cora and her team at Los Angeles. And we thought it was going to be very important for us to tell you a little bit about the Primary Promise and give you some background. So Cora, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about the Primary Promise and how it started?
Fabulous, thank you. I'm Cora Watkins, and I have been given the opportunity to learn a lot about early literacy lately and the science of reading. And the project that I've been working on for the last 6 months is Primary Promise. And the goals of that are for all of our students to leave 3rd grade able to read, but not just able to read, actually moving from learning to read to reading to learn, being able to use that reading. And we noticed well before the pandemic that there was a high number of students who were not meeting those early literacy benchmarks. So that was the start of this, and this is actually a project that began about 4 years ago in terms of the thinking about it, the planning it out, and then our board approved it last year, and this is our very first year of implementation.
Was there a lot of change between now and 4 years ago with the program?
We initially started out looking to support kinder and first graders, but when we look at our data, unfortunately, and probably like many of the other districts, there are students in second and third grade who are still struggling with basic phonological and phonemic awareness and not as far along on the continuum as we would like. So one change has been the inclusion of the second and third graders, just to make absolute sure that we're reaching out to everyone who is an at-promise reader.
I
The
love
other
that.
change, I know, yeah, it's we are selecting schools that have high numbers of at-promise learners that really need an extra boost.
And do you have dedicated coordinators at these schools?
We do, and I don't know if you want to use the slide deck,
Sure.
and we can kind of talk through the program a little bit.
Great.
It's kind of a multifaceted program, actually. We have about 530 elementary schools in LA Unified. And we are doing differentiated, targeted assistance. So not every school is getting the same thing. It's based on what their needs are, just like in our classrooms. So 226 of the schools are receiving that direct support of both a full-time intervention/prevention coordinator, as well as an instructional assistant who's being trained in supporting literacy. And those 226 schools were selected because of the incredibly high number of students who were not meeting benchmark indicators, and we use the DIBELS as our measure. So we looked for schools that were struggling immensely, had high numbers of Latinx students and or English language learners, as well as African American students, to see where we could provide the most support. So there are those coordinators, and then additionally, there were other supports designed to be given to all 500 plus schools.
That's phenomenal. That's really being able to reach out to so many kids that need it. Kristen, if you're able, could you start showing the slideshow that we sent in?
Yes, it is up. So we're on the program goals. Can you see it?
No.
Oh, that's a problem. Okay, how about now? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
It was up the whole time. That's my fault.
All right. So the goals, if you are at one of the schools that have the intervention prevention primary promise coordinator, then what we're expecting is that, you know, miracles don't happen and change doesn't come in an hour. But what we are expecting at the end of this year is that we'll be able to see that all students who had that opportunity to participate with the primary promise coordinator, that they would exceed the average rate of progress on DIBELS compared to schools that did not have that access, and to students who were not participating with the coordinator. The other piece of that is all of the schools that have the coordinator would reduce the percent of students who were either below basic or well below basic on their DIBELS, and that would decrease by 5%. So we wanted to pick things that still could be fair and reasonable to teachers and to students, given the pandemic, and our district just last week came back for in-person instruction. So we wanted to make sure that we were setting up some goals for this year that would fairly measure the impact.
I have to imagine that this time away from school is going to make some kind of an impact on some of the kids, and hopefully you know, you'll be able to see some increases as we get closer to the summer.
I think we already are. As I said, our district started back 2 weeks ago, and just today when I came into the school site, one of the things that I heard was how surprised some of the teachers are with their K and first graders who, because they're face to face, they're just seeing a blossom effect, that those things that maybe didn't seem to be catching now are starting to catch. So I think we're in for a good finish to the year and a good summer where we will have extended learning opportunities.
That's so great. And you know, those little kindergarten and first graders, they're different kids than they were at the beginning of the school year. So they might make up faster.
Yeah, I think the maturity factor, you know, everybody who teaches TKK1, everybody loves January because that is the spring season. If you're a kindergarten gardener or a first grade gardener, because those babies just take off in January. Typically after winter break, they come back and things that made no sense the first semester, all of a sudden the light bulbs are on, their eyes are shiny. So now, unfortunately, is our January, but we're very glad that we're having this opportunity.
Absolutely.
So in terms of why our board decided, why now, you know, we've got so much going on, and I think every school feels the same way, but when you looked at those students who were not meeting the indicators, and we looked at the research and found that without intensive support, you're only going to get 10 to 20% of those students showing the level of improvement that they need to. Plus, we've got to worry about minimizing that COVID learning gap.
Absolutely.
So there's kind of 5 facets to this in terms of, we don't want to just provide intervention. We want to accelerate their reading. We don't want them to be catching up for the rest of their elementary years. So the important pieces of Primary Promise are centered around systematic teaching with explicit modeling, the individual and small group instruction, the after school or beyond the bell tutoring, as well as student learning materials. And the student learning materials are for asynchronous as well as synchronous work. And that's where we'll get into our relationship with Hand to Mind.
And I remember you saying explicitly, we have to have it for asynchronous and synchronous. So everything we chose, we had to keep that in mind because we were trying to keep the teacher and the kids in mind the whole time.
And I think the other audience that we were all working on were the parents. If this learning is occurring at home, we've got to have materials that the parents can feel comfortable using. And that led to the creation of the instructional videos. So parents have access to the videos. Teachers, of course, have shown the parents how to do it, but we didn't want everything to fall on the teacher's shoulders. So having the ability to send them to a site where they could watch over and over how to utilize a particular learning material was really helpful. And I've received so many emails from parents that even if their teacher hadn't started using it for synchronous, they wanted to get some tips and tricks for how to use it at home for extra learning opportunities for their child.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad those videos came in handy and that we were able to close caption them. It made the world of difference to us because I knew we were helping kids and parents.
Yeah, it's something that even if the child doesn't have parent able to take that time to support them for a myriad of reasons, the child can also look at the video. It's non-language dependent, it's all visual, and they can be reminded of how to use it too if an older sibling puts it on. So it's extremely useful, and very glad that we were able to do that, offer that through your your partnership.
Absolutely.
So the targeted supports go to those extended learning opportunities, which we actually have had to push off because of the pandemic. So those will actually be starting over the summer. Our literacy manipulatives, and then training for the teachers at all of the elementary schools, and in particular, even more intensely at the targeted 226 schools.
That was a lot to give them, so that was so great that we could make the best of your budget so that they had so many neat materials.
And the reading interventionist, we've kind of talked about the coordinator, but another position, we've tried something unique, and I think it's going to be something other districts may want to consider. We looked at teachers who have retired within the last 4 years and are inviting them back to work as professional experts, as reading interventionists, so that we can provide additional pull-out support for students that maybe the coordinator has too big of a caseload and can't get to them, or maybe that particular school didn't receive one of the coordinators, and using the retired teachers as our interventionist has, it seems like we've got a lot of interest. We have about 80 who are being processed through HR right now, and we also plan to use the materials with the reading interventionist, the literacy materials.
Oh, that's great. And if they need any support, you know who to call.
Speed dial.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please.
So this is just giving you a really brief idea about the importance of the role of that intervention prevention coordinator. The direct support services are the critical element, and the requirement is that the coordinator spends at least 50% of every day giving direct support to the students that are in their caseload. And this means at least 4 days a week and at least 25 minutes per session. And it could also be during the coordinator's other time when not working directly in the small group, maybe doing co-teaching with the actual homeroom or classroom teacher, for example, during their intervention time. So it's one more body in the room to provide some support and assistance. And then it's also supporting the professional development as it pertains to early literacy. And then that literacy program assistant works directly with the coordinator so that every day is that service. The coordinator, the assistant working in that small group, reinforcing the lessons the coordinator has already put forth, and making sure that the assessments and monitoring are done. And depending on the level of the students, of course, that will determine if the assessment will be at a 2-week mark or a 4-week mark. So we have students being assessed every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and every 4 weeks to make sure that whatever that small scale instruction is, that it's making a difference. And if it's not making a difference, then we need to change the instruction before any more time passes.
That's really smart, not to waste the time and make those changes to that intervention if that's what they need.
And part of Primary Promise is really thinking a lot about supporting diverse learners. And for our district, like so many, we have a very large population of English learners. And obviously the support there needs to be both in terms of language development as well as in foundational skills support. Our other group,
sorry. Okay.
Our other group that is a very big population for us is a group of standard English learners, where they may have listed English as the official language on their enrollment paperwork, but they're coming into our schools speaking perhaps a different dialect, or having more non-standard speech patterns than standard speech patterns. So we have to look at how we can best help them as well as our English learners, and that's going to be by providing a culturally and linguistically responsive foundational skills support. And then our district also has many students with IEPs and Section 504 plans, students with a variety of disabilities, and we wanted to make sure, as we looked at materials, that we were looking for multisensory materials. We have a particular emphasis right now on students who exhibit signs of dyslexia. So in talking with Jackie, we were really looking for materials that would be tangible, be tactile, be multimodal, and would provide students with literacy support, but in a very hands-on way.
And before we even go into the kits, I want to kind of take you back to last fall and ask you, what made you call upon us?
So you weren't my first, I'm sorry, I'm embarrassed to say, but you might be my last. So we had looked for ready-made things at all the places that we typically order from, and just wasn't feeling it, did not feel like it was doing the things that we wanted it to do. What they were offering wasn't necessarily going to provide students with what they were missing during remote instruction. Also found an incredible number of fantastic resources that were online, but we have enough online resources. We need to give kids time off of the screen. We need to give kids developmentally appropriate, age-appropriate opportunities to explore and to make connections in a tangible way that can start helping them grapple with the skills that they need at this early stage of reading. So after going through countless online options, and then trying to get different vendors to support the creation of a kit, I was met with a lot of, oh, well, we don't really have that. We don't really do that. The couple of companies that I did find that were willing to engage in the conversation to create a differentiated kit for each grade level, they were talking about like 4 months, 5 months longer than it was going to take hand to mind. And that would have meant we would have been receiving them now, which is just so late in the year.
Right. So what happened then is, I think Cora contacted our customer service department.
Yes.
Who put her in touch with our local sales rep, at the time was Nathan. And then Nathan kind of felt you out on what you needed. And then we have what's called a custom team at Hand in Mind. So we all came together. I was brought in because I have a bit of a literacy background. And we started talking about things like what's off the shelf, what's ready, what could we do. At this point in time, I believe it was just a TKK through grade 2 conversation for literacy. So we then got on the phone with you. We found out your budget. We found out your timeline. And because of funding, you had to have a certain timeline. We had to find ways to get it delivered to the kids. And so we started those conversations, and just our process is that we'll meet with our customer partners, then we can come together as a team and start brainstorming what we can do. Then we source it out to find the most cost-friendly items that we can get, and we want to make sure that our printers can get the work done on time and that it all can be delivered on time. And then we wanted to give it back to Cora because we, as a partner, we don't want to just assign something. We're going to give her ideas and alternatives. At first, we were looking at what are called our reading rods, which would have eaten her budget up if every child just got a set of reading rods. And we knew we really needed to make a difference. So we found different alternatives for those reading rods that would save her money and allow her to put more items in the kit. So after we did the TK through grade 2 literacy, then Cora came back and said, okay, everybody really likes what you're telling us about TK grade 2. Can you come back now and do grade 3? But the focus on the TK through 2 is really more about phonemic awareness and phonics and a little bit of fluency. Third grade, as we all know, as Cora has said, learning to read versus reading to learn. We wanted to add a little bit more differentiated text in there. So we were able to show Cora different options for differentiated text to save money. We didn't put them on laminated cards, these texts, we put them in cases. So we were trying to find different ways to save money. And I guess they liked it because then they came back to us and said, what do you think about grade 4 through 6? And of course, that's a whole different spin because those kids need a lot more text. And I remember Cora saying to me, you know, it's important for us to have kids cite evidence of their reading. It's important to us that they have multiple touch points on a topic. So if they're reading about whales, I want more than one text on whales so that they can do some compare and contrasting. And we also know there's that word called standards that we had to take a look at. So everything that I was proposing, we made sure that we met standards, not just the literacy standards. I also wanted to try to help the teachers meet science and social studies standards. So I was choosing text topics that would align to the grade level standards in grades, basically TK all the way up to grade 6. Then what did you do, Cora? After we got done with literacy, what did you do?
Then we added math so we could work on early numeracy as well. So following the same line of thought, what do students need that could be used in a myriad of ways that would make sure that they can acquire those foundational math skills to really own place value, to really own the understanding of how numbers are composed and decomposed, and we chose some great materials there. And I think the teachers have been equally excited about the math and the literacy materials. And then we came back another time for our students, going back to our students with disabilities. These kits that Jackie's referencing are large, by and large, were chosen for students with mild, moderate learning disabilities, as well as our general education population. But we also have another it's a relatively small but very important population on an alternative curriculum, which means in LA Unified that they are not pursuing a high school diploma. They have more significant needs, and they are classified as moderate to severely disabled. But within that, there are many students who are learning to read at certain levels. So we came back together and created a kit for all of our students on the alternate curriculum, and it is being shipped out this week to the students, delivered to the students.
So exciting. So we're going to start to show you some pictures of some of these materials. I just want to preface that by saying these are, some of them you can see are smaller. We would normally like to show you the actual, but we wanted to show you what we were showing Cora, because Cora had to take it back to her district and then get approval. So here's an idea of what we did for TK and K. The one item that the teachers came to Cora about, I believe, was the phoneme phone right there in the middle.
Yeah.
And then what we did for the reading rods, you'll see there in blue and red and yellow and blue, we made them into tiles so that it cut down on the cost, but the kids were still manipulating and having that hands-on experience. And then the TKK teachers wanted some die-cut letters because the foam letters were expensive or the plastic letters were expensive. We wanted to make sure we were giving them as much as we possibly could to fill those bags for the kids. They wanted Elkonin boxes and discs. So instead, again, of the plastic or foam discs, we did laminated cardstock that they just punched out. We gave them a write-on wipe-off piece. It's not a board. We found a way that we could save money and make it into a mat. It's a laminated mat, and they can still use their dry erase marker on it. We wanted to help with some focusing, so there's a highlighting strip in yellow at the bottom. There are some high frequency words that we made again into tile punch outs, and then we put them all in a bag. So that's what you're kind of seeing for the TK group. Is there anything, Cora, you would like to address with that one?
I think just the diversity of materials, you know, really playing up, thinking about students' different strengths. So kids who are more auditory, hoping that that phoneme phone would help them grasp sounds that maybe they were not getting over a Zoom lesson, and that practice at home could be so invaluable. And then the tactile, both the letters and the cards for the reading rods really give the student that opportunity to engage. And again, trying to look at color coding so that there are other contextual clues to help students understand and distinguish between consonants and vowels, for example. So, and then the writing piece, you know, all of our teachers already had assigned like journals and workbooks, but we also wanted something that would be a visual for the letters in this case, as well as a place to practice for the kids.
That's great, thank you. All right, let's go to the next grade. I think it's grade 3. There we go. So here, what we decided to do is add in our versatile. So at the top left-hand corner, you're seeing the versatile's answer case, and then the workbooks that they use. There's nothing that they're writing. They're actually using their tiles to make a pattern, and it's self-correcting, so kids can work on this on their own. And that was one of the great things about asynchronous learning. We also gave them a highlighting strip, and instead of the laminated text that you see in the top right hand corner, we put them on paper, and we gave them the clear view paper saver, so the kids could still annotate or highlight with their dry erase marker, but they weren't ruining their text, so they could go back to them for another time. We did the reading rods tiles again, 2 different kits, and that was the beauty of it. Also, kids didn't just get 1 kit, they each got 2 different kits. So we have a total of 9, and each works on a different literacy skill. So we're able to give the kids a little bit more than they would have gotten with the reading rods. And then the reading rod cards over to the right, they usually come in on a, if they're bound, but we took them off the binding to save money. And those are the kinds of activities that the kids could do in asynchronous learning with their reading rod titles. And then you have the reading rod activity book that each child got. It was a 4-color book. It was really great. And then again, we found a bag for the kids to have their materials in. And any comments on these, Cora?
Just to kind of reiterate what you said a couple of minutes ago about the text. So there is an at level, a slightly below level, and a slightly above level, so that in grade 3, as you know, there may be readers at all different levels in your class. So these gave students an entry point, but gave them also a common piece to read about. And the other piece that's important in California is that we are going for a blend. By third grade, hopefully it's a 50-50 blend of expository and fiction reading. So all of this reading, assuming that more of their reading at home may be along the fictional narrative kind of line, all of the materials, all the passages are expository.
Right, and for third grade, we dipped down into some of our second grade texts, and we dipped up into some of the fourth grade texts so that the teachers really got a nice range of reading levels. Great, and can we go to our next slide, please? This, I think, is just showing you the reading rod cards, the reading rod activity books, some of our math materials. You'll see the mini Rec and Rec. So you can kind of see.
This is the bag for our alternate curriculum. So and in alternate curriculum, even more so than in a general education class, the range of levels is just tremendous. So here you have K through about third grade level materials combined into one kit, and that would give the teachers, the parents, a little more flexibility in using the materials based on where their child was. The other thought was, for our classes, in most cases, special education students stay with the same teacher for 2 to 3 years. So having this bag of materials, this set, would work with a student for multiple years. So feeling like we could really get our money's worth and get multiple opportunities for exposure and really maximize the effectiveness of it for the teachers.
That's so great. That's just wonderful. I did not know that they stayed with the same teacher for a number of years. That's good to know. It's great. Okay, let's go to our next slide. Okay, these are the actual kits now. So you can see to the left a grade 1 math kit and all the materials that it came with. We even created a special number line for you. And then to the right, you're seeing a second grade literacy kit. And so in grades TK through grade 3, they had separate math bags and separate literacy bags. And when it came to grades 4 through 6, another way to save a little money is to combine them into one. And here it is. All the bags have a tag so that the teachers or the distributors knew where to get them. And then all the materials are in here. There's journals, there's books, there's manipulatives, all kinds of great stuff in here. And then the teachers also got bags because they had the instruction in their bags. So that explicit systematic phonics instruction was really important, and we made sure that the teachers had that. And I think this is about the end of our slideshow.
That's it.
I don't know if we have any questions or anything. Cora, I just wanted to say again, it's just been an honor to work with you. I can't wait to meet you and hug you live soon. And
Same
maybe
here.
get into some of the schools and see the magic happening, because we know that's where it really does happen.
Agreed.
And thanks for
Yeah,
taking the
just
time out today too.
I second that. I appreciate you both joining today. So thank you for walking everybody through, what you've done here and sharing a bit of your journey with us. So I appreciate it very much. And if anybody has questions as a follow-up, feel free to reach out to me. My email's on the invite. Happy to answer or forward if needed. So thank you all for coming and listening, spending some time with us. I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. And this is the last one for the spring. So we'll start again in the fall and hope to see you there.
Save the best for last.
That's right. Thanks, guys.
So much. All right. Have a good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.